every great artist does thousands of things for which we have no method of writing on paper. We don't know how to do that. And we have to, through imagination, through feeling, through I don't know what, some instinctive quality that some artists have, we have to try to understand and reproduce and give to the listening public what we consider was in the mind and soul of the composer.
Leopold Stokowski was born in London, but managed to acquire an accent of indeterminate origin. It was all part of a natural showmanship which from time to time obscured the full extent of his talent. In fact, he was an expert conductor who could draw from any orchestra what became known as the Stokowski sound. That rich, lush quality developed during his 20 years with the Philadelphia Orchestra.
The flute has a solo. Instead of my conducting him, I follow him. I notice how he likes to phrase. Same with the oboe, the clarinet, or the horn, or whatever is a solo instrument. Now, with the strings, I like the feeling of the violin that sounds like a voice singing, to give it what we call cantabile in music. This singing quality is a beautiful thing. You have to give them a little freedom and breadth to do that, and I admit I do that.
lot of people still today look upon him as a charlatan, but he was a musician right through and through, and he knew exactly how to present himself to the world. But when it came to conducting, I still think there was no one before him or since who knew how to make an orchestra sound. You might not have agreed with the sound. It was terribly lush and sometimes perverse, but it certainly ravished your ear.
It wasn't charlatanry. He really did believe in it. He believed that the huge sort of Victorian organ sounds that he got in the Bach toccata and fugue were justified. And when you listen to it, it's a terribly exciting sound.
Some conductors had techniques that were at best difficult to determine. Koussevitzky, for example, was a marvelous conductor, but completely by the power of his personality. And he did it in rehearsal, searching for ways to make the orchestra reach for something that he could not explain in words. And he screamed and yelled and cajoled in English, Russian, and French until he got what he wanted. Fritz Reiner was one of the most brilliant stick technicians that I ever heard or saw. He had the orchestra at the tip of his baton, and he used a baton about this long, and he would just gently, and then he would do the tiniest of motions, and then look at them and say, "Why don't you follow me?" There are many stories about him, but there are legion. But the man was an absolute master of every single moment when he was on that podium. He knew it all. It was all in his head, his ears, and his eyes looked. Now, any good conductor will tell you, and as Reiner did very often, they use their eyes most intelligently. It's the eye as much as the hand. They're looking at the orchestra, they're looking at the men, seeing, are they watching the conductor, are they looking at the score? But at some moment, simply by looking, they make the musician look at them, and there's an eye contact. The musician knows that the conductor knows what's going on in his mind at that moment. He was not a man of sentiment or sentimentality. The same time, he once recorded The Dance of the Seven Veils, and Mrs. Reiner, who was always present, said to me, "Don't you think he should schmaltz it up more?" And I said, "Well, depends." I said, "I'm sure he won't." So when he came down here to playback, I was the one elected to brave the lion, and I said, "Dr. Reiner, it's a marvelous thing. There's no editing involved. Would you want to do it once more, just to make it a little more sensuous, a little more schmaltzy?" And he said, "No." And that was the end of that.
the minimum of body motion, he got the most out of any orchestra. And if you talk to other musicians who played under Fritz Reiner, there was nobody who knew the score better than Fritz Reiner. He was flawless. All he had to do was just look at you.
I set out to build an orchestra which would combine the best qualities of the fine European orchestras, pre-war period, even pre-First World War period, with the finest qualities of the American orchestras in their best period. That is the impeccable intonation, the impeccable virtuosity, the brilliance, the smoothness of execution, which very often in America was an end in itself.
It's the Bell Telephone Hour.
You play it now absolutely 100% rhythmically, this ta-tam, pa-pam, pa-pa-dam, but at the same time it has a little bit of pedantry about it. Couldn't we just make pa-pam, pa-pam, pa-pa, not too much space, not demonstrating how rhythmically we are playing it, just naturally, pa-pam, with a little more resilience to it. Before C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Third and fourth horn with it, pa-pa-pam, coming in good time and preparing a good crescendo. Shadows, long form, almost a little too long.
I didn't sack many. I was, you see, the Cleveland Orchestra was financially always very well endowed, so I could proceed with due regard to certain human considerations and could do it in a milder way. But there were, of course, moments of heartbreak and moments of unpleasantness. But then, of course, you arrive very soon at the point, and this point is now very much at discussion. What is the purpose of a symphony orchestra for which so many people give without compensation their time, I'm now talking about the board, and collect money. That's the way American orchestras are being run, as you know. There's no state or public money, just private money. What is the purpose? Is it the purpose of the symphony orchestra to make it possible to have the best of music, or is the purpose of such an orchestra to give their members the easiest and unchallengeably permanent job?
Oboe, please don't shortchange me in your very last note. No vanishing acts, please. F. Even more F. Don't sustain a lump of sound, sustain a dotted half note with a pulse of each quarter inside it. Then you know when to go on. Once more F. It has to be a little bit more sarcastic.
George Zell knew how the oboe breathed, so he would breathe with it. He knew how to give the oboe time to prepare the breath. He was a pianist and played wonderfully, but he bowed his scores for the string players. Some of them were funny at times, but they worked musically. He knew how to create the effect that he wanted with an up bow or a separate figure or a legato, whatever the case may be. He knew exactly what he wanted to hear, the kind of articulation or the kind of singing sound that he wanted given that composition, that place. And this is something that the orchestra musicians want to know.
Horns just a shade late, some of the horns. You must be prepared way ahead of time. I can't do better than to repeat this truism I think I said yesterday. Rests aren't there to rest, but to be braced for the next entry, to prepare and to be ready for it and to listen what's going on around you and to bring your next entry in so it makes sense and connects. To be ready with your breath, with your embouchure, everything, and with your general attitude. The resolution, alive. Suspense, no crescendo. Suspense, quick crescendo yet. One, pew, pew. one piano, two, then one forte and two fortes.
Und das konnte die 100. Aufführung sein. Die war noch genauso faszinierend wie die erste. Denn er brauchte sich, er sah sich so als Mittelpunkt und musste da entsprechend sich engagieren für sich selber, für seine Karriere.
I confidently feel that for the greater part of public who has never been in a concert hall, they will get the idea. We've made some very queer experiences. First of all, in this time I was with my orchestra in Berlin in Japan. And last time we have been there was just one concert televised for people who were invited. This time every concert was televised. We have 18 concerts. And the estimate is that 25 million people watch these concerts. There is no getting around the fact this is the future and this is our times. And today it's maybe 25 millions. In 3 years when we will do the thing from the concert, there will be 200 millions.
Karajan war der Erste, völlig anders. Er war nicht auf der Herstellerseite, sondern er war der fantastische Verkäufer. Nicht? Er verkaufte die Musik. Und er verkaufte sich, er verkaufte uns mit. Und das passt in unsere heutige Zeit. Nicht? Und deshalb, das hatten wir gespürt und deshalb wollten wir ihn auch haben. Nicht? Weil wir ganz deutlich wussten, wir haben jetzt damals unendlich viel Schönes kennengelernt. Auch Karajan wollte dieses Orchester haben, weil dieses Orchester den Klang Furtwänglers in sich trug. für uns war die erste Zeit nicht leicht, denn Furtwängler hatte uns flehentlich angeschaut und er hatte sich mit uns auseinandergesetzt. Und jetzt plötzlich wurden wir keines Blickes mehr gewürdigt. Nicht? Die Augen waren geschlossen und er stand dann so vorn und dabei nun diese glutvolle Musik dagegen setzen, nicht? Wenn man nicht angesprochen wird von dem Partner. Das war im Anfang sehr schwierig für uns. Später haben wir dann uns immer mehr aufeinander eingestellt. Karajan sich auf das Orchester und das Orchester auf ihn, sodass wir dann damit umgehen konnten.
No, that's not right. It's not enough. You must, please, almost no bow. Just like breathing on the string, but an enormous left hand. I know it goes against your grain as a solo violinist to do that, but you must, to get this sonority of voices. It's got to be singing. It can't be just string playing.
There was a natural eruption of creativity in Lenny that spilled over into his interpretive and performing habits. He was not to everybody's taste always, and he did tend to overgild the lily once in a while, but so wonderfully and so gloriously. He gave of himself, and he created this wonderful palace of sound and ideas and emotion, sheer emotion.
There was somebody who had a more of the physical energy of rhythm in his body, in his little finger, than any conductor I've ever seen before or since. I mean, it was not just that he danced on the platform in a way that was unpalatable to many people, but didn't worry me, because it seemed to me that he was not trying to say, look at me, I'm having a wonderful time, but he just couldn't prevent it. It was as natural to him as swimming. And he had this extraordinary ability to make the players go along with that rhythmical current.
If we ask what is it that music communicates to us, it's like all great art, that every human being is alone in a sense that he's locked up in the isolation of his own mind. And then you hear a piece of music and you feel he too has been through this. And it's almost as if the musician is saying to you, you're not alone, I am with you.